Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we should be taking the advice from a group of people who can't define what a woman is. You certainly can't define what government efficiency is. So let's just start right there, Mr. Chairman. I support the subcommittee, the creation of the subcommittee on DOGE. I wildly support Marjorie Taylor Greene as the subcommittee chairwoman. And again, to the party who says we don't like or support women, well, guess what? We have 2 women on this committee who are subcommittee chairwomen who carry gavels.
Let me tell you something. Y'all need to find some people that actually care about their constituents. And honestly, whenever y'all are ready to work, we on this side of the aisle have always been ready to do what is right by the American people. Instead, what you can continue to do is go after the most vulnerable in our country. The fact that you just sat up there and somehow figured out how to tie trans folk to your argument makes no sense to me. But let me tell you something. Trans people ain't going nowhere. Just like when the racists wanted to make sure that black people somehow were going to be dismissed in this country, we ain't left either.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and let me tell you all something. Watching Nancy Mace argue in that Oversight Committee meeting was like watching someone set themselves up for failure and then act surprised when it all falls apart. She's out here pushing for redundancy, calling for bigger government under the guise of creating more oversight, and then has the audacity to pretend it's about protecting Americans.
We had Joe Biden, we had Nancy Pelosi, we had Chuck Schumer controlling everything on the Hill in the Capitol for years. And guess what? They've all delivered. They delivered the worst economy in history for Donald Trump.
You've got Mace sitting there rattling off the same tired GOP talking points, saying we need this new subcommittee because Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer have supposedly delivered the worst economy in history for Donald Trump. Yeah, you heard that right. She's blaming Trump's failures on everyone but Trump himself. And let's not forget her wild claim that the Biden administration has somehow delivered more terrorists coming across the southern border than any administration in history. Folks, this isn't an argument. This is nonsense. And the best part, she goes on to claim that this subcommittee is going to fix it all. That redundancy, more government, and more wasted taxpayer dollars is somehow the solution. This is the same Republican Party that spent decades crying about big government and wasteful spending. But here they are, trying to expand government and create redundant committees just so they can have more platforms to grandstand and push their culture wars. It's the kind of hypocrisy that's so blatant, it would be laughable if it weren't so dangerous. But Jasmine Crockett didn't just sit there and let this nonsense slide. She hit back hard, and let me tell you, it was something to see.
So the Republicans have controlled this committee. So my question is, why is it that you need to create an entirely new subcommittee when you literally could go through and do whatever work it is that you're talking about handing over to the gentle lady who has never seemingly brought up anything about efficiency? The only thing I recall from the 118th was her spending a lot of time on somebody's junk in this committee. So let me be clear. Y'all had a chance. You chose not to use it. So why should the American people be convinced that now all of a sudden, because you create a new committee that has been promulgated by a real oligarch, you're talking about Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. They were actually duly elected, not somebody sitting there buying Twitter and just happened to be the richest person in the world telling y'all what to do. Let me tell you something. Y'all need to find some people that actually care about their constituents. And honestly, whenever y'all are ready to work, we on this side of the aisle have always been ready to do what is right by the American people. Instead, what you can continue to do is go after the most vulnerable in our country.
Crockett made it clear that this isn't about fixing problems. This is about creating noise. It's about distraction. She exposed the fact that the same people who scream about small government are the ones pushing for bigger government when it suits their agenda. And she wasn't alone. Maxwell Frost stepped up and laid it out even more bluntly when he pointed out that their redundancy is the nail in the coffin.
I just want to point out, we just heard someone say that we can't have enough committees to look into government efficiency. But if you know anything about efficiency, you can't have too many committees doing the same exact thing. It's almost as inefficient as having 2 co-directors of a fake Department of Government Efficiency. And so if we want to be serious about this, which I'm very skeptical that folks are, I agree with this amendment on combining these subcommittees that would essentially do the same thing, help us consolidate government resources and spend less, which is supposedly what you care about.
They can't have it both ways. You can't claim to be the party of small government and then turn around and demand more subcommittees just to push your political theater. It doesn't add up, and Crockett and Frost made sure everyone knew it. Nancy Mace tried to make it sound like this was about protecting the American people, but let me tell you what this is really about. This isn't about protecting anyone. This is about power. This is about creating platforms for people like Mace, Marge the Trainwreck Green, and Andy Biggs to perform for the cameras. It's about giving them more opportunities to push their lies, their conspiracies, and their culture war nonsense. And let's not forget the bigger picture here. While Mace, Green, and the rest of the MAGA squad are sitting there talking about oversight and efficiency, what they're really doing is distracting from their actual agenda. They don't want to talk about the fact that tomorrow marks the biggest of the largest deportation operation in America's history. They don't want to talk about Donald Trump thanking Elon Musk for rigging the election in Pennsylvania. They don't want to talk about Musk making Nazi salutes or Trump raking in billions from his latest crypto scam. Nope. They want you focused on their manufactured drama so you don't see what's happening behind the curtain. And let me tell you something, folks. When Nancy Mace talks about reducing government waste, what she really means is cutting the programs that keep everyday Americans alive. She's not talking about cutting the bloated defense budget or the corporate subsidies that line the pockets of billionaires. She's talking about gutting Social Security, Medicaid, and SNAP benefits. She's talking about taking away the lifelines that millions of people depend on just to survive. And then, to top it all off, you've got Marge the Trainwreck Green chiming in saying that we shouldn't shame success.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to commend Chairman Sessions for the good work that he's done on government ops. I think that's been great. However, our current state of affairs is we are $36 trillion in debt. Congress cannot have enough committees on oversight to look at cutting the ridiculous amount of spending, waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal government. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to chair the subcommittee on DOGE. Also, I don't think that we should be shaming people for success in this country, as we're hearing from the ranking member today. You know, success is something every single American strives for, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that Americans can be successful. And in doing so, cutting the ridiculous amount of spending that has carried on for decades here in Washington, D.C. is one of the most important steps that we can take as members of Congress in ensuring that the American people are successful. And doing that, we can get them and hopefully dig them out of this grave of debt, which is $36 trillion.
Green says we should celebrate people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump for being successful. Let me ask you something. What's their definition of success? Is it rigging systems to benefit the rich while everyone else struggles? Is it exploiting workers, firing thousands of people, and then turning around and making a Nazi salute? Because if that's their idea of success, then yeah, maybe it deserves a lot more shame. Crockett made it clear that this isn't about protecting success. It's about protecting billionaires. It's about protecting the Elon Musks and Donald Trumps of the world while throwing everyone else under the bus. And let's not forget Mace's claim that no Republican has ever tried to cut Social Security. Folks, that's not just a lie. It's a slap in the face to every American who paid into the system and depends on it. The GOP has spent decades trying to dismantle Social Security. They've called it a Ponzi scheme. They've pushed for privatization. They've proposed cuts under the guise of reform. And now they're trying to gaslight us into thinking they've always been its biggest defenders. It's insulting. This is the GOP playbook in action, folks. They create chaos, they manufacture distractions, they gaslight the American people, and they hope you won't notice what's really going on. But here's the thing. We see it. Jasmine Crockett sees it. Maxwell Frost sees it. And they're not letting these people off the hook. They're exposing the lies, the hypocrisy, and the distractions for what they are. So next time you hear Nancy Mace talk about reducing government waste, or Marge the Trainwreck Green talking about shaming success, remember what this is really about. It's not about protecting Americans. It's about protecting billionaires. It's about creating platforms for chaos while dismantling the programs that keep this country running. Kudos to Jasmine Crockett for holding these MAGA hypocrites' feet to the fire. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.